In this episode, we're going to look at wireless LAN configuration. I'll show you how to do it, and we'll talk about the concepts along the way. We'll apply our wireless LAN skills and knowledge by configuring a home wireless router and an enterprise wireless LAN controller. We'll implement both WPA2 pre-shared key and WPA2 enterprise security. Finally, we'll connect hosts to each wireless LAN and verify connectivity. We'll be discussing how to configure both wireless home router and wireless LAN controller based networks. We'll implement both WPA2 pre-shared key and WPA2 enterprise security. Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify nation, and if you're new here, welcome. This episode is part of my series on configuration examples for the CCNA. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. Wireless LAN configuration. I have the Packet Tracer lab open. On the left side is our working area where we have our devices and we're going to do our configuration. On the right side, I have our instructions. The very bottom right is that standard Packet Tracer window that comes open with your Packet Tracer, and that has the instructions in it. Above that in the upper right is the Word document with those exact same instructions in it. Now, the reason I have the Word document is there's a couple questions we have to answer as we go into the lab and we work through that. The Word document allows me to type my answers in and save my configuration. On our network here, we can see we have a home network, we have an enterprise network. What we have to do is we have to configure our wireless systems and our wireless devices to get our devices onto the network. They don't necessarily have to communicate between the home and the enterprise. They just have to communicate with each other, and then they also need to communicate with the web server through both the URL www.netacad.pt and the IP address of the web server 203.0.113.78. Our addressing table, we got all of our information there. We'll be referencing that quite a bit throughout the lab. Here we have our wireless LAN information, home information, our corporate network, our enterprise network information. Objectives, we configured a home router to provide Wi-Fi, configure WPA2 with the pre-shared keys. Then we're going to come into the wireless LAN controller, configure some WLANs, WPA2 with a pre-shared key and connect a host, and WPA2 Enterprise and connect the wireless LAN host. And finally, we're going to verify that connectivity over here on the enterprise network. Part 1, configure a home wireless router. You're going to set up this home wireless router to give you internet access at home. A couple things we need to do here. Open up the home wireless router graphical user interface, change the router IP and the DHCP settings according to the information in the addressing table. I can come over here, I can click on the home wireless router, opens it up, click on the graphical user interface, and we should see some of the configuration settings. Now let's go up to our addressing table, see what addressing we have. The internet should be for DHCP. Right now it's static, so let's go ahead and set that to automatically configure. It'll pull in an address. Our LAN IP address is 192.168.6.1 with a /27. A /27 is 255.255.254 at the end. We need to go ahead and change those. So the third octet here, instead of a 0, we should have a 6. And then our subnet mask, 3 255s and a 224. Right there. Okay, permit a maximum of 20 addresses to be issued by the router. We scroll down here underneath network setup. That's where we go ahead and do that. Right here is the maximum number of users. We need to change that to a 20. Configure the DHCP server to start with IP address .3 of the LAN network. That'd be right here. Right now it's currently set to 1. That's the IP address itself. We're going to get confusion here because we're handing out the .1 address, but we also have it assigned. We're going to go and set that as the .3. Configure the internet interface of the router to receive its IP address over DHCP. We already did that. A little excited there. Verify the address. Well, down here it says we got to set our DNS. Let's set our DNS right now while we're here. We scroll up. We can see the DNS server IP address here is 10.100.100.252. Each one of these is an octet. And so I hit 10 and I hit tab to go to the next field. 100, 100, tab, and then it was 252. Come down here, let's look. We just have to verify our IP address. So at this point, go ahead and click Save Settings. Go back up. Looks like it's saved. Looks pretty good. Now it says verify our IP address. How I verify it is I click on the status over here. I'm gonna make the window a little bit wider. Click on status. And then here's our internet IP address of 10.100.200.3. That was the address I got. 10.100.200.3. Now you might get something a little bit different in there, but your first 3 octets will still be the same. 10.100.200. You might get a .2, might get a .3, you might get a .4, depending upon how your system initially started, but it should be pretty close to this. That looks all pretty good. I think step 1 is done. On to step 2. The network will use the 2.4 gigahertz wireless LAN interface. Configure the interface with the SSID shown in the wireless LAN information table. Now over here, let's get into the right area first. We want to go into wireless. So I clicked on wireless, and then we're in the basic wireless settings. You can tell we're there because it's a white settings. If you want to make sure, go ahead and click on it. Configure the 2.4 gigahertz with the SSID shown. So here's the 2.4 SSID for that is home SSID. Capital HOME, capital S, capital I, capital D. Now use channel 6. Right here is the standard channel. Let's go ahead and choose channel 6. Once again, remember you only got 3 channels basically to choose from, 1, 6, and 11. Also, be sure all wireless hosts in the home will be able to see the SSID. We'll be able to see it. If we look here, SSID broadcast is disabled. So devices, when you open up your smartphone, isn't going to see this SSID being broadcasted. Your home SSID is not going to show up as an available network. What we need to do is enable that. Go ahead and click enable. And that should take care of step 2. Once again, we have all our settings. We need to click save. And save that. On to step 3. Configure wireless LAN security. Use WPA2 personal. That's sort of like a pre-shared key or a passphrase. The passphrase shown in the wireless LAN information. Now, to go ahead and do that, we'll make sure we're on the wireless, and then we go into wireless security. That's right here. Kind of hard to see. It's in the blue underneath the word security. Click on it. It'll become white. You should be able to see it. Then We want WPA2 personal, so under 2.4 gigahertz. Under security mode, we want WPA2 personal. And we want to set the passphrase here of what's in the table. Passphrase in the table is Cisco 123. Capital C on Cisco. Capital C, Cisco 123. Okay, that should take care of step 3A. On step 3B, secure the router by changing the default password. But before we leave this page, once again, remember we have to go to scroll down, save those settings, and now to change the password to log into the device, that's actually underneath administration. So if you click on administration and then management, right here is the router access password. Router password, we want to change to Cisco 123. Now we're reusing passwords. You really shouldn't do that in a production, in your real world environment, in your house. You should have different passwords. So if your password does get compromised, they don't have access to every part of your system. So you should use individual and unique passwords. Here we're using passwords just for the simplicity of the lab. But we want to set it to Cisco 123. Right here, capital C, Cisco 123, and we got to re-enter it, capital C, Cisco 123. I think that was it. Value in the table. Okay, all we have to do, go ahead and click save. We have saved our settings. On to step 4, connect clients to the network. I'm going to go ahead and minimize our home router window. Open up the PC wireless app on the desktop of the laptop and configure the client to connect to the network. Okay, so on the laptop, we're going into the desktop tab and then the PC wireless app. Make the window a little bit bigger so it fits nicely. And what we want to do here at this point in time is come up here, click on connect, and then refresh, and it'll list out what networks are available. There's that network we just configured, the home SSID. So go ahead, click on that, and then click connect. It identified it as the security for WPA2 personal. Now we need to enter in our pre-shared key, that passphrase. Once again, is capital C, Cisco 123, and click connect. If we go back to link information, we now see that we have the link here. We got good strength, good link quality, adapter is active. And if I slide this over, we can see that the laptop is now connected into our home wireless router by wireless. Okay, open the config tab on the tablet PC and the smartphone and configure the wireless interfaces to connect with the wireless network. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Smartphone, desktop. Oh, not the desktop, but we have to go into the config tab. That's what it says right there. Go into the config tab. So we're into the config tab. Then we go underneath interfaces and wireless 0. From here, we have to make a couple settings. First, we set the SSID to home SSID. That's what we set up. So capital H, home, capital S, capital S, capital I, capital D. And then we have to set the authentication for WPA2 pre-shared key. Right here, go ahead and select that. And once we do that, we have to enter in our pre-shared key. That was capital C, Cisco 123. And slide that over, and then all of a sudden our smartphone is connected into our home wireless router. And now we have to go ahead and do that for the tablet PC, the last device there. So click on my tablet PC, bring that over, click on the config tab. Underneath interface, we want wireless 0, SSID of capital H, O, M, E, capital S, capital S, capital I, capital D, home SSID. And authentication is WPA2 with a pre-shared key of capital Cisco 123. 203. Go ahead and minimize that. Give it a second, and now the tablet PC is connected. And all three of our wireless devices are connected into our access point. Verify connectivity. The host should be able to ping each other and the web server. They should also be able to reach the web server URL. So all three of these wireless devices in the home network should be able to ping each other and the web server right here. And then they should also be able to connect to the URL of the web server. We're going to put the IP address in the web browser also of our devices. Let's go ahead and start. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click in this window and just mouse over and see what IP addresses they got. So wireless 0 got 192.168.6.4. Smartphone got 192.168.6.5. And laptop got 192.168.3. So .3.4.5 are the three IP addresses we got. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our laptop, open up our command prompt, and ping. And that was 192.168.6.3 is myself. 4 is one of the other devices. That works. Up arrow once, backspace, and change that to a .5 at the end, and that's the other devices. So all those devices, all three of these devices right here, are able to communicate with each other. They can ping each other. Last thing we have to do is, can they ping, or can we open up a web browser and go to the URL and the IP address? So I'm on the laptop still. I'm going to go ahead and close the command prompt. That's at the right hand side of the blue line. Click on the X, open up my web browser. In my web browser, we'll put in the IP address 203. I'm going to slide this over so I can see it. 203.0.113.78. And here is a beautiful text-based web page to prove we can actually get that. So we went from the laptop to the wireless router through our cable modem across the internet to our web server. And finally, let's go ahead and put in that URL, www.netacad.pt. Click go. And that also worked. And so all the devices can ping each other. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, open up a smartphone here, desktop, web browser, put in our address 203.0. Can't remember that. 113.78. Here's our web page, and then our URL, www.netacad.pt. There we go, that worked. And let's test our tablet PC. Desktop, make it a little bit wider. Web browser, put in our IP address 203.0.113.78. Here's our text-based web page, and let's put in our URL, www.netacad.pt. Hit enter. Here it is. How do I know it worked? It actually put in the full correct URL with the leading protocol, http:// I didn't type that in there. It put it in there, so that's how I can know it worked. But if you sit here long enough, you do not get an error. That takes care of configuring our home network. Now let's go ahead and configure our enterprise network. I hope you're liking this episode on practical configuration examples. Leave a comment on what you think about these configuration examples. If you still have a question or comment, please let me know below. You can also visit my website at KevTechify.com for all of my details and how to get these episodes in video and podcast form. So we're configure wireless LAN controller with 2 wireless LANs. One LAN will use WPA2 with a pre-shared key. The other one will use WPA2-Enterprise with a radius server. Also configure wireless LAN controller to use SNMP and configure DHCP scope that will be used by the wireless management network. Okay, So step 1, from the enterprise admin, that's this PC right here, navigate to the wireless LAN controller 1 management interface via the web browser. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Click on the desktop pad, make this a little bit wider. Click on the web browser. Now, we have to go into the IP address. If we look at our topology right here, 192.168.100.254. Yep, I purposely slid this over so we can just get that information. So 192.168.100.254. Give it a second. Got the important thing here. It needs to be the HTTPS. So add in that S in there. Then go ahead and click go. Brings us to the WLC login page. Go ahead and click login. It's asking for the username and password. It's either right here in the lab, admin and Cisco 123, or they actually give it on topology here. So admin, and then the password capital C Cisco 123, and log in. I'm going to make this a little bit wider so it lays out better. Step B, configure an interface for the first wireless LAN. That's those virtual interfaces. Now, in order to do that, what we have to do is come up here and click on controller. Once we're in controller, you can go ahead and click on interfaces. And then these are the existing interfaces. We're going to go ahead and create a new one. There is no new button, but if we slide all the way over, because for some reason they don't lay these out in a dynamic fashion or make sure that the new is new, or that you can always see the new button. Let's slide it all the way over to the right, click on new. Then they say the name here is WLAN space 2. Go ahead and type that in there. All caps, space 2, VLAN ID of 2. Now when we click apply here, it's going to go ahead and create that. When it creates it, we can now go in and configure it. Here's some more information. They want port number 1. So that's the physical port on the switch on the back of our wireless LAN controller. That's where the cable is going to get plugged into. The IP address, net mask, and then the gateway is router 1's G000.2 address. Okay, so let's go ahead, set up our IP address, 192.168.2.254. Network mask is a /24, so 255.255.255.0. And then the default gateway is that gig 000.2 address. If we scroll up, gig 000.2 is 192.168.2.1. 192.168.2.1. Primary DHCP server is the gateway address. Well, we just set that up. It's the same address, which is this address right there. 192.168.2.1. Filled in all the information. Looking pretty good here. Now, we filled in the information. Now we have to go ahead and apply it. So go ahead and click apply. It's going to give us a warning here saying that we have to turn off the wireless, make the changes, turn it back on. While it's off, people may lose connectivity. So it's up to you when you do this, outside of business hours, during lunch. We created it. I'm going to go ahead and click back. And now it's going to list out our interfaces. Here we have WLAN 2. We just created that. So we took care of B. Now we're going to create a second one. We're going to do C right here. So let's scroll over to the right, click on new. When we click on new here, the name is WLAN 5, capital W, LAN, all caps, space 5. And then the VLAN ID is 5. We're keeping the numbering simple. Notice the 5s are following through. Go ahead and click apply. That creates it. Then it'll allow us to do some configuration. Configuration here, port number 1. That's that same port we connected into. If we look at our topology, wireless LAN controller here has one cable going out, so all communication has to go through it. Basically, it's a trunk port. That's our port 1. VLAN identifier was 5. We entered that in the previous screen. That's how it knew it. Then we have our IP address and our network mask. This IP address is 192.168.5.254. Network mask is a /24. That gives us over here 255.255.255.0. Default gateway is the router 1 G000.5 interface. Scroll up here. G005 is 192.168.5.1. Go ahead and enter that in, 192.168.5.1. Scroll back down. Primary DHCP server is our gateway address. That's what we just figured out. So it's this address again, which is 192.168.5.1. Scroll down, make sure that's everything. Look at my numbers, make sure they all look good. Looking good. Let's go ahead and click apply. Gives us our warning. Click back, and we can see our two interfaces we just created. VLANs, IP addresses, dynamic. There we go. We got that set up. That looks pretty good. On to step 2. Configure a DHCP scope for the wireless management network. Configure and enable an internal DHCP scope as follows. Now, to do that, where we go here is on the controller. That's right where we are. On the left side, we want to click on the internal DHCP server. Then, once that is expanded, we click on DHCP scope. We have our scope here. We're going to create a new one. Once again, you have to slide over to the right and then click new. The scope name is going to be management, M-A-N-A-G-E-M-E-N-T. Right, you click apply, it's going to create it. And right there it is. Nothing is configured, so we have to go in there and configure that. Click management, and once again, I'm just going to slide it over here. What this is for is our wireless devices. So basically this lightweight access point is going to connect in and get its IP address from there. Any other host on the network, these two laptops down here, they should be pulling their IP address from a different DHCP server. On R1, we have a DHCP server set up. Those are for our hosts there. The DHCP server on the wireless LAN controller, basically you can think about that as for our lightweight access points that manages those IP addresses and those only. Our DHCP scope, we're in the management scope here. Starting address 192.168.100.235, 192.168.100.235. Ending address is 245 at the end, so 192.168.100.245. Network address is the first 3 octets with zeros at the end, so 192.168.100.0. Net mask is a /24, so that comes out to 255.255.255.0. And then our default router is our default gateway, 192.168.100.1. 192.168.100.1. I do have one typo here. I always go back and check. Instead of .1, it should be a .0 there, because that's just the network address. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Always make sure your status is enabled down here. At this point, we can go ahead and click on apply. Now we have the management scope here. We have our address pool range 235 to 245. That all is looking like what we need. So I think step 2 is done. On to step 3. Step 3, configure the wireless LAN controller with an external server addresses. This is for our radius server. So A, configure the radius server information as follows. To do that, that's part of the security menu right here. So I clicked on security. Then underneath AAA, underneath radius, we come to authentication. Go ahead and click on authentication. And we want to add a new one. There's nothing listed now. I'm going to go ahead and click on new. This is where we can go ahead and enter in our information. Server index or priority is 1. Then our radius server is 10.6.0.254. So 10.6.0.254. Our shared secret, that's to authenticate against the radius server, is radius PW, capital R, capital P, capital W. So capital R, lowercase a, lowercase d, lowercase I, lowercase u, lowercase s, capital P, capital W. And then repeat that again. Capital R, radius, capital P, capital W. Leave everything else on the defaults. Go ahead and click apply. You can see now that we have one server listed. Server index of 1, server address 10.6.0.254 on the ports. And we are enabled. That takes care of step 3A. On to step 3B. Configure the wireless LAN controller to send logs to an SNMP server. Simple network management protocol. It collects data and allows you to go through lots of records, and depending upon what applications you use, it might give you some nice pretty charts and graphs showing you uptime, congestion, whatever you're mapping, whatever you're looking at. Now to do that, what we have to do is click on management. It's on the management menu. So I clicked on that. On the left side, click on SNMP to expand it. And what we want to do is go into trap receivers. When we click on trap receivers, we see none are listed. Let's go ahead and create a new one. Community name right here is WLAN, all caps. IP address is the same as our radius server, 10.6.0.254. 10.6.0.254. Make sure status is on enabled and click apply. Now right here is our trap receiver name. We can see it listed out here with the right IP address, and it is enabled. Step 3 is done. Let's go ahead and look at step 4. Create the wireless LANs. Okay, to create a wireless LAN, we need to go into the WLANs menu here. So I go ahead and clicked on that. Opens that up over here. Make sure we are in this WLANs right here. We have create new. That's what we want to do. There's none listed in this area, so we're going to create new. Click go. Our profile name is wireless VLAN 2. So capital W, wireless VLAN is all caps. I spell VLAN right. And then 2. Once again, notice all these that deal with this wireless LAN is 2. We're keeping all those numbers there. The SSID is SSID all caps -2, and the actual ID itself is 2. Notice we're following through. We're keeping it simple. Go ahead and click apply. That creates it and then brings us where we can go through some configuration. First thing you do when you come here is status. You want to make sure you enable it, because if you don't enable it, you cannot connect to it. So if you're going to use it, make sure you enable it at that point in time. Down here, next thing we have to do is change our interface group from management to the one we're connecting. Once again, we're dealing with VLAN 2, SSID 2, so this is WLAN 2, what we created right there. That's pretty good. Security, WPA2 with a pre-shared key, so if you underneath security. On the layer 2 tab, for layer 2 security, go ahead and select WPA and WPA2. You actually need to now enable WPA2. So where it says WPA2 policy, go ahead and check that box next to it. Opens up some other information. We want it to be a pre-shared key. So that pre-shared key here, come down here underneath authentication key management where there's the PSK. Go ahead and click enable. When you click enable, it allows you to enter in your pre-shared key. So the passphrase here is Cisco123. Once again, make sure you use different passwords. Here in the lab, we're using the same one to make it a little bit simpler. Capital C, Cisco123. And then under the Advanced tab, go to Flex Connect and enable Flex Connect local switching and Flex Connect local authorization. So scrolling back up, underneath the Advanced tab, scroll down. Here's the Flex Connect section. So check first Flex Connect local switching and check the second one for Flex Connect local authentication. Once you have those selected, we can go up here, click on apply. And once it gets back to being on the general tab, you can go ahead and click back. And now there is that wireless LAN we just connected or created. Now we got to go ahead and create a second wireless LAN. So that's for step B right here. So once again, we have create new right here. Go ahead and click go. Profile name here is capital wireless, all caps VLAN 5. SSID is SSID all caps -5. And then the ID itself is 5. Once again, keeping it simple, keeping all the same number right there. Once we have that all set up, we can go ahead and click on apply. Creates it, then brings us into it. First thing to do, always make sure to check you're enabled. I've done that sometimes and I couldn't figure out why wireless wasn't working. I forgot to check it, so I always check that right away. Then we need to change our security to the 802.1x to use an external server. So that's on the security tab right here. So layer 2 security, go ahead and select WPA2. Make sure to check WPA2 policy right there. And now we need to come down here for our key management and select 802.1x. Once you got that selected, we can scroll back up and now we can actually say, where is our AAA server? So go ahead and click on the AAA tab right here. And for server 1 right here, you click that and select the server we just set up a couple minutes ago, the 10.6.0.254. Go ahead and select that. So we have that all set up. And then finally, make the Flex Connect settings as we just did. That was once again under the Advanced tab. If we scroll down to the bottom, this is the Flex Connect section. So for Flex Connect local switching, go ahead and enable that. And Flex Connect local authentication, go ahead and enable that. Once you have those all selected, go ahead and click apply. When we're back on the general tab, you can click the back button right here. And there is our 2 wireless LANs we configured. On to step 5, configure the host to connect to the WLANs, the wireless LANs. Use the desktop PC wireless app to configure the host as follows. I'm going to go ahead and minimize the Enterprise admin window. wireless host 1. So I'm going to go open up wireless host 1, click on desktop, and we'll use the PC wireless app. That's right here. Go ahead and click on that. Make this a little bit bigger so it fits. Wireless 1 should use wireless VLAN 2. Once again, if we remember, wireless VLAN 2 was a personal, WPA2 personal or pre-shared key passphrase, Cisco 123. So let's go ahead and get that connected. So from here, go ahead and click on connect and then refresh. And we want to connect to SSID 2. So go ahead and click on SSID 2 so it's highlighted and click connect again. Identifies it as WPA2 personal, and then it's asked for the pre-shared key. Pre-shared key, once again, is Cisco, capital C on that, 123. Click OK or connect. Go to link information, and there we go. We can see that we have nice little signals connecting up. We have good signal strength, good link quality, and adapter is active. Go ahead and minimize that. We can see wireless host 1 is connected in there. Okay, now wireless host 2 should connect to the wireless VLAN 5 using the credentials in the WLAN information table. Okay, so wireless host 2, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Click on desktop. And then PC wireless app right here. That opens up the configuration. Here's our information we need to connect there. WPA2-Enterprise to the SSID 5. Here's a username and a password that's already been pre-configured on our Radius server. So you've done some setup already. You've configured that Radius server. You've configured a user with a password. Now we're just going to connect into it. We're going to authenticate against that Radius server. To do that, what we do over here is we're going to create a profile. Because we do have usernames and passwords that are individual, we want to set up individual profiles. So I clicked on profile, and then we want to create a new one. Now, what do you want to call this profile? Up to you. I'll call it wireless network. Something nice, something simple. If I spell network correctly, click OK. And then it brings me here. Next step, it shows me the available networks. Once again, we want to use SSID 5. So go ahead and click on SSID 5 so it's highlighted and click connect. Oh, my fault. Click on SSID, not connect, but click on advanced setup. So once you have SSID 5 highlighted, click on advanced setup. Wireless mode is infrastructure. We have access points. That's how we're connecting. Network name here is SSID 5. That's the one we're connecting to. So go ahead and click on next. We want to make sure we obtain our network settings automatically using a DHCP server. So make sure that radio button is selected. Click next. Then for our wireless security is WPA2-Enterprise. WPA2-Enterprise. From the dropdown, go ahead and choose that WPA2-Enterprise. And click next. Here we have some different configurations. We're going to take basically the defaults, but we need to supply that login name and password. Here's the login username. I'm going to go ahead and enter that. Lowercase u, lowercase s, lowercase e, lowercase r. Capital W, capital L, capital A, capital N. And then number 5, because that's the network we're connecting into, SSID 5. Then the password. Here's the password. Password is case sensitive. So lowercase u, lowercase s, lowercase e, lowercase r, capital W, 5, lowercase p, lowercase a, lowercase s, lowercase s. Leave the defaults there for everything else and click next. Verify our information. It all looks sort of good. Go ahead and click save and then connect to a network. Give it a second here. If everything is set up correctly, we should see that connection happen. And there it is. That we can see that we have a wireless connection. Our wireless adapters are connected. Signal strength, link quality is good. Adapter is active. Everything is looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. Scroll down to the bottom. And then test connectivity. Test connectivity between the wireless hosts and the web server by ping and URL. Okay. First thing we got to do is ping between these two. Whoops. Ping between these two to make sure it works. Once again, they are on different VLANs. This was 192.168.2.2, and then the IP address over here on wireless host 2 is 192.168.100.236. That's not right. I have something set up incorrectly. I did something wrong. So I'm going to click on the Enterprise Admin PC, and it was with this last one I set up wrong here. What did I miss? So I clicked on the 5, wait for it to come through. Waiting. It's gonna be really slow. Oh, right here, I forgot to change the interface. Forgot to change it. It's on management. We need to go into the WLAN 5. So go ahead, click on WLAN 5 and click apply. We get our warning. Wait a little bit, wait a little bit. Still waiting, click back. It'd give us a list of our wireless LANs. I think we're gonna be good to go. Now that we fixed that on the wireless LAN controller, let's go ahead into wireless host 2. I'm gonna go ahead and close this, open up my command prompt, and I'm gonna do a renew here. So IP config /renew. Now we're pulling in a 192.168.5.2 network. That's looking really good. So wireless host 1 has an IP address of 192.168.2.2, and then wireless host 2, 192.168.5.2. Okay, let's go ahead and ping those. Open up my command prompt. And so 192.168, hang on, let's start over. Use the word ping first. 192.168.5.2. That was the other laptop. Hopefully we're doing an ARP lookup here. Failed once, 2, 3, and 4 worked. I'm just going to repeat that to make sure it works. Up arrow once, hit enter. All 4 are working, so I can ping. I can ping between these two. Now I'm going to go ahead and close the command prompt, right side of the blue line, click the X, open up my web browser, put in my IP address here, 203.113. Okay, let's start that completely over. 203.0.113.78. Here's our beautiful text-based web page. That's looking pretty good. So we're able to reach our web server by IP address. Now let's put in our URL. www.netacad.pt. And that loads in great also. All of our wireless devices were able to get to the web server and each other in their respective locations. Everything is working. That was Packet Tracer Lab 13.5.1 Wireless LAN Configuration. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on configuration examples. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. There you can find out how to get all these episodes in video and podcast form. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on practical configuration examples for the CCNA. I've created 4 wonderful playlists for you on the CCNA. These episodes, I go through all the concepts that Cisco calls out for the CCNA. Once again, I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.